Hey, welcome back. Now we're going to talk about plant care during the transition from soil to hydroponics. And one of the main elements of plant care during this transition period is the balance of air and water at the roots. Because remember, we said growing roots is job number one here. And so with our system, this is pretty easy to do because you have an outer pot, an inner pot, and a water gauge. And so with all of those elements, regulating the amount of water that's in the system is relatively easy. When you have a planter that doesn't drain, or when you have a planter that doesn't have a water gauge, it's all a guessing game, and you're not going to have nearly the success you have when you work with a system like what we have. So here's the watering technique that I use for most of my transplants. And I want to remind you again that the KLN is the rooting solution that I use at this point. How I water is pretty easy. You simply pour water over the pebbles until that little red indicator comes up to a quarter on the gauge. That's all I want, just a quarter on the gauge. And then I just sit back and wait until the water is used up, and then I water to a quarter on the gauge again. And the water would be used up anywhere from a week to 10 days, something like that. And so what happens is that when all of the water is used up, that's when the air gets into the roots, and the roots need air as much as they need water to grow. And how I check for that is I watch the little red indicator here, and when the little red indicator goes down, I use it as a handle, lift up the inner pot, and check to make sure that everything is dry in the bottom before I water it again. It's that simple. And so that's my watering technique for the Anthurium. It would be the same thing for the Eureka palm. I water it until the little red indicator pops up to about a quarter on the gauge, and that's it. And then I wait till it goes all the way down before I water it again. Some plants don't like water at all after transplanting, and aloe vera is one of those plants. Succulents, cactus, all of those don't like water at all after transplanting. Zizi plants are another one, very popular plant now these days, and you really need to be stingy on the water with the Zizi plant too. And so how I water these plants is, again, with my KLN solution, I pick up the plant, take it to the sink. This is my pretend sink. And I pour water through the pebbles, or pour the KLN solution through the pebbles, let it drain away, and then I put it back in the outer pot with no standing water at the base. And I'll do this once a week, twice a week, something like that for the first 4 to 6 weeks. Then I'll start watering using the water gauge, but I only water until that little water gauge pops up, and then I stop. And then I make sure that it's dry before I water it again. It's that simple. The final watering technique is for my African violet, and this with an African violet, I like to use a bottom watering technique. So for that, what I do is I lift up the plant, pour the KLN solution into the outer pot until there's about half an inch, something like that. Then I set the plant back down on that water, and now that water, or the KLN solution, is going to be drawn up to the roots with the capillary properties of those leca pebbles. And my job is to check it, and when it's dry, I do the same thing. Pour water in the bottom of the container and then wait for it to use it all up. Again, with all of these, it's what we're talking about here is the first 4 to 6 weeks. You have to be a little bit careful with the watering, but after that initial period, when the plants start to develop water roots, they're much stronger. You don't have to be nearly as careful. In fact, you'll be watering the plants probably once every 2 to 3 weeks. All of the hydroponic equipment that we used today in our transplanting is available on our website. That's www.easygrowhydro-store.com, and there's no W on grow.